10 new gun restrictions. Every citizen needs to know. A federal judge just issued a ruling so devastating that it made a police chief in Texas resign on the spot. 10 constitutional bombshells dropped last week that are making cops across America panic because their biggest weapon against gun owners just got obliterated forever. If you're carrying right now and don't know rule number 1, your next police encounter will either make you rich or put you in a body bag. Police departments are burning their training manuals as we speak. Subscribe now because this information could save your life or make you a millionaire in the next 15 minutes. Rule 10. The instant immunity activation. This gives you a legal nuclear weapon that makes corrupt cops freeze like deer in headlights. 99% of gun owners don't even know this superpower exists in their back pocket. When a rogue officer starts trampling your constitutional rights, there's one 27-word phrase that stops them dead and turns the tables completely in your favor. It's like pulling out a legal grenade and threatening to blow up their entire case. Here's the exact phrase. Officer, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, my Sixth Amendment right to an attorney, and I do not consent to any searches or seizures. This isn't just words. This is legal dynamite. The moment these words leave your mouth, any evidence they collect becomes worthless trash that gets thrown out of court. Any confession they force out of you becomes legally meaningless. Any aggressive move they make after this becomes a federal constitutional violation that the new Martinez ruling forces judges to examine with a microscope. I've personally witnessed this single sentence turn felony drug charges into million-dollar wrongful arrest settlements. But here's the killer part. If that officer keeps pushing after you've clearly invoked your rights, he's basically signing his own termination papers because it proves to the court his actions had nothing to do with legitimate police work and everything to do with ego and constitutional violations that can now destroy his entire career. Rule 9. The 3-second evidence bomb. This rule has literally saved people from death row. It takes 3 taps on your phone screen, and most gun owners never think to use it until the handcuffs are already clicking shut and their lives are over. The instant you see those flashing red and blue lights, or spot officers approaching, you activate what defense attorneys call the Trinity Protocol that has overturned more wrongful convictions than any other single tactic. Start recording immediately. Announce the date and time out loud, and scan for witnesses like your life depends on it, because it does. Here are the exact words that turned a 25-year murder charge into a dismissed case and a $2 million settlement. It is date and time. Police are making contact with me at location. I am legally licensed to carry and currently armed. Recording this interaction for the protection and safety of everyone present. You're not just making a recording. You're creating a legal time bomb that proves your mental state, cooperation level, and constitutional awareness from the very first millisecond of contact. Under the new Supreme Court standard, courts cannot ignore what happens in those critical opening moments anymore. Your recording becomes the difference between bankruptcy from legal fees and walking away with a settlement check that sets your family up for life. Rule 8. The Constitutional Carry Trap Destroyer. If you're in a constitutional carry state, thinking you can casually walk around armed without knowing this rule, you're walking into a legal trap that has destroyed thousands of lives. Here's the shocking truth most gun owners learn too late. Even in constitutional carry states, police can still detain and harass you if they can invent specific suspicious activity. But the game just changed completely because they cannot legally detain you simply for exercising your Second Amendment rights in plain view. The magic phrase that has turned illegal detention lawsuits into 6-figure paydays sounds like this. Officer, I am legally carrying under state constitutional carry laws. I present no threat to any person, and I am prepared to cooperate within the boundaries of my constitutional rights. That word boundaries just triggered something in that officer's brain because you're not refusing cooperation. You're establishing the legal limits that could cost him his badge if he crosses them. When he inevitably tries to escalate by demanding to secure that weapon for officer safety, here's your nuclear response. Officer, I acknowledge your safety concerns, but under the new Martinez standard, I need you to articulate the specific observable behavior or circumstances that would justify disarming a law-abiding citizen exercising constitutional rights. This forces him to either back down or create evidence for your future lawsuit, because vague feelings and hunches no longer cut it in federal court. The Vehicle Fortress Protocol. Your car just became an impenetrable legal castle, And this rule shows you how to turn every traffic stop into either a routine encounter or a lottery ticket that could retire you early. When those red and blues light up behind you and you're legally armed, the next 30 seconds determine whether you drive away with a warning or whether this becomes the most expensive traffic stop of your life, but not in the way you think. Most gun owners sabotage themselves by over-talking or consenting to searches they have zero legal obligation to allow, essentially handing officers the rope to hang them with. Here's the bulletproof protocol that has turned traffic stops into dismissed cases and civil rights settlements. Hands visible on steering wheel, interior lights on if dark, and when they ask that inevitable question, "Got any weapons in the vehicle?" Your million-dollar response is, "Officer, I am legally licensed to carry and currently armed. My firearm is properly secured and poses no threat, and I do not consent to searches of my person, my vehicle, or my belongings." You just accomplished 4 critical things in one breath: established legal status, eliminated surprise, demonstrated compliance, and created constitutional boundaries they cross at their own legal peril. The new Martinez ruling requires specific articulable facts for searches, and "I felt threatened because he had a gun" no longer passes the constitutional smell test when you're licensed and properly disclosed. Rule 6. The home invasion shield. Your front door is the last line of defense between your constitutional rights and a police state, and if you don't know this rule, cops can transform your sanctuary into a crime scene faster than you can say Fourth Amendment. When police show up at your door for welfare checks, noise complaints, or claiming to investigate crimes, you possess absolute constitutional rights that most gun owners accidentally flush down the toilet in the first 10 seconds of doorbell panic. Here's the script that has prevented thousands of illegal home entries and protected countless gun owners from having their firearms wrongfully confiscated. Officers, I can observe you at my door, but I am exercising my Fourth Amendment rights and do not consent to entry without a valid warrant. I am legally armed as guaranteed by the Constitution, and I am willing to communicate through this door or step outside to speak. The fatal mistake that turns your home into a police playground is opening that door wide and stepping back, which courts have consistently ruled constitutes implied consent for entry. Instead, speak through the closed door completely, crack it open just enough for conversation, or step outside and firmly close it behind you, because once they're inside without a warrant, everything you own becomes potential evidence in whatever case they decide to build against you. Rule 5. The Miranda Trigger Recognition System. Most gun owners believe Miranda rights only activate after arrest, but this deadly misconception has sent more innocent people to prison than any other legal misunderstanding in American history. If you wait until you're in handcuffs to invoke these rights, you've already talked yourself into a felony conviction, and you don't even know it yet. The instant a police officer shifts from treating you as a witness to treating you as a suspect, you have microseconds to recognize that transition and protect yourself before it's too late. Here are the warning signals that mean you're about to be railroaded. Officer's voice turns accusatory. He starts probing your activities instead of taking statements. He restricts your movement or makes you feel detained, or he begins treating your legal firearm like evidence of criminal activity instead of constitutional rights. The moment you detect this shift, you immediately deploy this life-saving phrase: "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent and my right to legal counsel before answering any questions." Here's the part that separates freedom from prison. Once those words leave your mouth, you become a statue. No explanations about why you're invoking rights. No attempts to prove innocence. No answering just one quick question. Stone-cold silence until your attorney arrives. Because every word after that invocation becomes another shovel full of dirt on your legal grave. Rule 4. The Movement Survival Protocol. This single rule has prevented more police shootings of legal gun carriers than every other tactic combined. And it's so powerful that it turns split-second life-or-death situations into ironclad proof of your innocence. But most gun owners never use this technique until they're already bleeding out on the pavement, and it's too late. Every single movement, gesture, reach, or position change during a police encounter must be verbally announced and approved before execution, because officers are trained to interpret unexplained motion as deadly threats, especially when they know you're armed. Here's the exact survival sequence that has saved lives. "Officer, I need to reach into my back right pocket to retrieve my wallet for identification." Do I have your permission to proceed? Wait for explicit approval. I am now slowly reaching with my right hand while maintaining my left hand in clear view. Move with deliberate slowness. I have successfully retrieved my wallet and am now accessing my driver's license. This isn't politeness. This is creating bulletproof evidence that your every movement was announced, authorized, and non-threatening. Under the new Martinez standard, courts must examine the complete sequence of events, including whether you properly announced movements and received permission to proceed. I've analyzed dozens of officer-involved shootings where legal gun owners died because they made unexplained movements that got interpreted as weapon draws. The survivors were always the ones who narrated every action and waited for green lights before moving. Rule 3. The Escalation Early Warning System. This rule could save your life by teaching you to detect the precise moment a police encounter transitions from routine to lethal, giving you critical seconds to adjust your survival strategy before the situation explodes into violence. Most gun owners miss these danger signals until they're staring down the barrel of a service weapon, wondering what went wrong. Police officers escalate encounters through predictable behavioral patterns, and once you learn to read these signs, you can tell when an officer is about to cross the line from constitutional policing into rights violations or deadly force. The red alert warning signals that scream immediate danger. Officer's vocal tone shifts from professional to hostile. He transitions from requests to demands. Body language becomes aggressive with hands gravitating toward weapons. He starts treating your legal activities as suspicious criminal behavior, or he begins ignoring your clearly stated constitutional rights. When you recognize these escalation markers, you immediately activate defensive survival mode. Movements become even more deliberate and careful. Speech becomes shorter and clearer. Verbal documentation of the encounter increases, and you prepare to deploy nuclear options if necessary. Here's the de-escalation script that diffuses 90% of dangerous situations. Officer, I can sense this encounter is becoming tense, and I want everyone to remain safe. I am not resisting your authority, and I am attempting to comply with all lawful orders while exercising my constitutional rights. The key phrase, lawful orders, reminds the officer you understand the difference between legal commands and illegal demands, while creating an official record for later judicial review. Rule 2. The Disclosure Decision Matrix. This rule prevents you from making the single most fatal mistake that gets legal gun owners shot, arrested, or charged with crimes they never committed. And it all comes down to mastering exactly when, how, and whether to reveal that you're armed during police encounters. Most gun owners think disclosure is black and white. Either your state requires it or it doesn't. But the reality is devastatingly complex, and one wrong word can literally get you killed on the spot. In duty to inform states, disclosure is legally mandatory, but the timing and method determine whether that officer treats you as a law-abiding citizen or an imminent threat requiring deadly force. Never, under any circumstances, blurt out, "I have a gun," or "I'm armed." Those words trigger officer adrenaline and hand-to-weapon responses that have ended in tragedy countless times. Instead, use this precisely crafted script. Officer, I am legally obligated to inform you that I possess a valid concealed carry license and am currently armed. My firearm is secured in specific location, and my hands will remain visible and motionless. Notice what just happened. You established legal authority, eliminated surprise factor, specified weapon location, and demonstrated zero threat posture. But here's the advanced strategy. If you're being treated like a suspect, if the officer is already aggressive, or if there's any possibility he'll discover your weapon through pat-downs or searches, disclosure can actually save your life by demonstrating cooperation and preventing the surprise discovery that often triggers police shootings. The key is reading officer demeanor, encounter type, and overall threat level before making your disclosure decision. Because getting this wrong could be the last mistake you ever make. Rule 1. The Officer Safety Excuse Annihilator. This rule is about to completely detonate everything you thought you knew about police encounters, because it destroys the biggest lie law enforcement has used to violate gun owners' rights for over half a century. For decades, police officers could justify literally any action, illegal searches, unlawful detentions, excessive force, even fatal shootings, by simply uttering two magic words that made judges bow down and citizens shut up. Officer safety. Those words functioned as a constitutional get-out-of-jail-free card that courts accepted without question, regardless of how unreasonable, excessive, or downright illegal the officer's conduct actually was. But the Supreme Court just detonated that excuse forever with a ruling so earth-shattering that it's causing police chiefs nationwide to have emergency meetings and rewrite decades of training materials overnight. In the landmark Martinez versus Thompson decision, the highest court in America explicitly declared that officer safety concerns must be specific, articulable, and objectively reasonable based on the totality of circumstances, not vague feelings, gut instincts, or generalized fears about armed citizens. This means when an officer wants to disarm you, search you, or violate your rights, he can no longer hide behind, "I felt unsafe because he had a gun." He must now explain exactly what specific behavior, words, actions, or circumstances created a particularized safety risk that any reasonable officer would recognize. Here's your new constitutional weapon. Officer, I understand and respect safety concerns, but under the Martinez standard, I need you to articulate the specific behavior or observable circumstances that justify restricting my constitutional rights. Under this new legal framework, officers must back up their actions with concrete facts, and when they can't, those actions transform into federal constitutional violations that result in dismissed charges, massive civil rights settlements, and criminal prosecution of the officers themselves. The days of hiding behind blanket officer safety excuses are over, and this ruling just handed every law-abiding gun owner the legal ammunition to fight back and win. Conclusion. These 10 rules aren't legal suggestions. They're survival instructions that separate the living from the dead and the free from the imprisoned. If this information saves even one gun owner's life, or prevents one wrongful conviction, then sharing this with every armed American you know isn't just helpful. It's a patriotic duty to preserve constitutional rights. Subscribe now and press notifications bell, because I'm about to release even more explosive legal updates that could make you rich or save your life, and you won't find this information anywhere else on the internet.